Hey guys, it's Tom once again, and this is a quick tutorial on a new drive called the VFD68, and this variable frequency drive is from Johnson Controls. It is a little micro drive, but it goes up to 20 horsepower in 230, 460, and 575 volts. So this is just a little 230 volt three-phase model, 200 volt, lots of people call it. So if you remove the first cover, you'll see the control wiring here. You've got a floating jumper that they ship floating from the factory, so keep this in mind. You're going to need this in a little bit to run the drive. In addition to that, there's a safe torque off jumper wire that they've built in. So you don't really need to do anything with this jumper wire. It just ensures that the safety circuit is made. If you want to make it like a category 3 type of safety, you can remove that and put in safety contactors, things like that. But for most of these kinds of applications, it really isn't needed. Here's where we're going to be wiring in our pressure transducers. And you'll be wiring up your power and your motor. If you squeeze on the side here and pull it down, you can see all the power terminals. I only have line power coming in. I haven't hooked up a motor at all or anything, so we'll be able to see frequency being sent to the drive or to the motor, but we just don't have a motor connected. Cover that up for safety, and let's talk a little bit about the basic operation of how to run this guy. Basically, you've got hand mode, and you've got preset speed mode, and you've got analog input mode, and you've got all these different modes that are pretty standard with most VFDs. This drive is pretty good because it makes it kind of simple to do basic operations. So say you wire up your line in, and you wire up your motor, and you just want to run it to see if it's going the right direction. If you press, just out of the box, power up, press the PU EXT button, you'll see that the PU lights up on the display. And when that's lit up, now you're in hand mode. So PU is hand mode, and when you press the run, you'll see the run starting to blink. So it's actually running, but it's running at 0 speed. Take the knob and increase the speed in order to run the motor. It'll flash like that for a little bit, and then it'll show you the actual speed that it's running, which is 20 Hertz. And you heard the fan turn on, and that basically means that it's running. When the run light is hard on, then it means that you're actually running it at a speed. When the run light is flashing, it means that it's running 0 speed, but it's still in run mode. So you see, we used our decel ramp to get down to 0, and now the run light is blinking. So that's hand mode, and that's as simple as it is. If you've gotten this far and your motor is running backwards, power down, switch one of the phases on the motor. So you've got U, V, and W. Switch U and V, or V and W, or W and U, and then your motor will be running in the proper direction. So I'm going to get out of hand mode here because that's basically all it is. Press stop. When I press PU EXT again, I go into what's a jog mode. Jog mode is just like hand mode, with the exception that when you press run, it's just momentary. When you lift your hand off, it's off. On and off. And if you want to change the speed, you can roll the dial. Actually, there's a separate jog speed to do that. So if you press PU and EXT for one more time, you get back into external mode, EXT. That's where you're going to be running your pressure transducers, and we're going to be wiring them into these terminals. Terminal 2 and Terminal 4 are analog input 1 and 2. So analog input 1 is Terminal 2. Analog input 4 is analog input 2 is Terminal 4. And the common for these is 5. So pin 5 is going to be your common for your analog signals. So there's diagrams in the manual of how to wire these up. It's pretty straightforward. Essentially, after you have those wired up, you know, to give you the Cliff Notes version, you take this jumper wire, and to make that run, you either put it into STF or STR. So if you've got your motor wired in the right direction, you can put it in start forward, STF. And you will see that it starts, the run light starts blinking, but we don't have any analog input, so it would be running it. It's just running it at 0 speed right now. In fact, if you wired the motor wrong or backwards, which you wouldn't know when you're wiring it, and you want to simply run it the opposite direction, you can just plug it into STR, start reverse, and it'll do the same thing. It'll just run in the opposite direction. So it's kind of an easy way. You can flip the wires on the motor, which is probably more proper, or you can just run it reverse all the time. It's really up to you. So that's the basics of how to get the drive running. Now we're going to move into parameter setting. Google search under VFD68 Johnson Controls Parameter Setup. If you type in those words, it should give you what you're looking for, a link to the ratiometric calculator. This isn't totally just ratiometric. You can actually choose a ratiometric, 0 to 10, 4 to 20 milliamp setup. But what this will do is it'll spit out the parameters that you're looking for to change for the application. It doesn't change things like accel and decel. It doesn't tell you where to set that because that's sort of application specific, but it'll get you running on the ramps and the slopes of what you need to set the analog inputs. So you choose the VFD68 type, and B is a 200 volt model, C is a 400 volt model, and a D is 575. For our application, we're using a B or a 200 volt. The sensor type, this is probably, most likely, this drive is getting connected with Johnson Controls P499 sensor. So that's a 0.5 to 4.5 ratiometric sensor. And then you just choose motor max frequency, which is North America, normally 60 hertz. Desired min frequency, so if you want to go minimum speed, what is that speed? Pressure where the motor runs at minimum speed. So at what pressure do you want it to run at the bare minimum, and at what pressure do you want it to reach its maximum speed? And then the P499, the rated pressure for that sensor, and in this instance it's a 750 psi rated. After you set all those, you can press calculate, and it will give you the parameters in the VFD68 to set up. So parameter 2 is 12.5 hertz, parameter 3 is 60 hertz, and then you've got a whole bunch of these C parameters. These are actually where you set up your analog input, and I'll show you in a second how to do that. So back to the parameter in the drive. To set up the parameters in the drive, make sure that this jumper is not in either STF or STR. If it's in either one of those inputs, you'll not be able to change a couple of the parameters on the drive, some of the key parameters for setting up the analog input. So based on our parameter calculator, the numbers that we were given, we're going to set parameter 2 for 12.5 hertz. So we'll go to 2 and we'll set it for 12.5 and then press set. And once you press set, there's no saving or anything. It just saves right in the drive. You can power down, power up. That value will save 12.5. The next parameter is parameter 3. So we'll go to parameter 3. Use the wheel to go to parameter 3, and we have to be in PRM mode when we're doing these parameter settings. Press set, and it's set for 60 hertz already, so we're good there. Press mode again, and we'll get into parameter setting again, and then we'll go to parameter C2. These are a little bit trickier to find. You got to go all the way to the end of the numbered parameters. Once you hit the end of the numbered parameters, you'll see a C parameter. So after parameter 991, there's parameter C. If you press set on parameter C, now you've got C1, 2, C3, 4, 5, 6, all the way up to, I guess, 25, I guess, but there's some skipped in the middle. So we're going to set parameter C2 for 12.5 Hertz. Now as soon as you press set on parameter C2, what you're actually going to see is the hertz that it's going to start at. So we want to set that for 12.5. And press set. That's C2. When you get to C3, we're going to set that for 1.9 volts. And now C4 is important. When you press C4, you can actually see the analog input that's coming into terminal 2 on the drive. So whatever the analog input of terminal 2 is, you're going to actually see it on the display. This is great because you can't really get a meter into the terminals very well to be able to do this easily. So if I take terminal 10, which is our 5 volt input, and I jumper this to terminal 2, you're going to see 5 volts on there, 4.97 volts. So essentially what's happening is we are seeing the value of the analog input as soon as you tune into parameter C4. But it's also got a setting in the background of it. So if I press set now, I can actually set that value. Oops, go to C4 and set. C4 there. And now we're actually changing the value of C4 to 2.74 volts, which is what we would want. C5 we're going to set for 12.5 Hertz. C6. Now C6 is exactly like C4. When you press the button, when you press set, you're going to see the value of terminal 4 reflected on the screen by default. 5.25 volts. 0 volts. 5.25 volts. There's a little bit of a scaling difference between the two of them, so that's why you see something a little different. So, if we set C6 for 1.9 volts, and then C7 for 2.74 volts, we've just set all the parameters we would need to set for this application. Set it again, and I can press mode until I'm in monitor mode. And that's the basic setup of a VFD68. I'm going to make a couple more videos that reflect some of the more monitoring capabilities and other things basically that you can do with this drive. There's actually quite a lot, so look for other videos in the near future. Thanks. This is Tom signing off.